Welcome to episode 174 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share 8 ways to move out of that overwhelmed state when everything feels exhausting. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, or find our new Truth for Teachers podcast community on Facebook. You can share your thoughts on the show there and reflect with other listeners in our private group. This episode is sponsored by UL Explore Labs, a free STEM-focused experience to build scientific knowledge and passion among middle school students. UL Explore Labs makes it simple to implement hands-on investigations in the classroom, and it's aligned with NGSS. Get your students solving real-world problems by going to ulxplorelabs, P-L-O-R, labs.org. Today, we're talking about those moments when you look at your to-do list and you feel like you just can't do anything on there because you're so exhausted. We're talking about those days when just basic adulting feels like too much, when you can't get motivated because everything feels hard and there's so many things that need to happen that you wouldn't know where to begin, even if you had the energy to try. I found it empowering to have a menu of choices, like a toolbox, that I can go to when I experience those feelings. These are a collection of strategies that I can pick from that I know have worked for me in the past, so I can just choose whichever one feels easiest or most relevant to me at the time. I'm going to share those 8 approaches in this episode, starting with the ones that require the least effort and willpower, and working up to those that require a little more. The easiest one, and therefore the best place to start when you are just ready for a meltdown, is to give yourself permission to stop doing and stop thinking. If you have no clarity and zero energy to get things done, it likely means that you need to release yourself from the pressure to be productive. You might need a break from the task that you're trying to convince yourself to tackle, but you might also just need a break from life. Granting yourself permission to put the to-do list away is sometimes the most powerful strategy in the overwhelm toolbox. I often find that when I allow myself to take a break with no guilt, I get motivated to jump back in the game a lot more quickly afterward. So it's not a cop-out to decide that you are just done for the day at 4 p.m. and then do as little as possible for the rest of the evening. Rest is the catalyst for productivity, not the opposite of it. You're a lot more likely to wake up feeling energized and clear-headed if you rest than if you force yourself to keep going when you know you're just not in the right headspace for it. Now, if taking the rest of the evening off isn't an option, try just giving yourself an hour or even 20 or 30 minutes in which you can do whatever you feel like guilt-free. Don't ignore your body's signals. Ask yourself, will I do a better job at these tasks that I need to get done if I rest and recover first? If the answer is yes, then flow with your natural energy patterns as much as you can. Take a true break, not only from working, but from thinking about work. Release yourself from that guilt of, quote, not doing anything, and trust that you will have more focus afterward. The more you practice giving yourself permission to stop, the easier it becomes to trust yourself not to fall into a lazy spiral where the less you do, the less you want to do. You'll get back into the groove later if you give yourself a true break and don't feel bad about it. So that's the first strategy. The second one is to choose self-comfort or self-care. If you are so physically exhausted and emotionally spent that trying to decide what to have for dinner feels overwhelming, you've probably gone too long without basic self-care practices that will help you stay in balance. See if you can identify the area of self-care that you've been neglecting and take a simple step to restore yourself. Has it been too long since you've gotten any fresh air and seen the outdoors, felt the sunlight on your face? Take a 15-minute walk as soon as you can. No phone, no music, just being outside. Has your bedtime started creeping back later and later? Then hit the bed early tonight, or take a quick nap instead of doing laundry. Have you spent more time scrolling mindlessly through social media than you meant to? Turn off the phone for the next couple hours and just be present with your friends or your family. Have you worked late every night instead of sticking to your self-imposed work curfew? Well, set a timer this evening and cut yourself off from work so that you can do a little bit of relaxing. Now, there will be times when you've let things deteriorate too far, and the idea of doing these kind of self-care practices just requires too much energy, and even that feels overwhelming. Sometimes self-care in the form of exercise and eating healthy is just a lot, and all you can manage is Netflix and cookie dough. That's where the self-comfort comes in. It's okay to do something that feels like a treat and indulge your senses first and then go back to your self-care habits. Just don't allow yourself to settle for self-comfort in the long term. A third strategy for moving out of overwhelm when everything feels exhausting is to get out of your head and regain perspective. When the hassles of life are looming over you in an impossibly large pile, sometimes what you need is to take a step back. It's time to find the big picture again so that nasty email from a parent or that uncertainty about which grade you're going to be teaching next year no longer feels like the end of the world. Start by taking some deep breaths. This is not cliched advice. It actually brings more oxygen to your brain, which helps you think more clearly. And it slows down your heart rate so that you're calmer. Try breathing in for a count of 4, holding the breath for a count of 2, and then breathing out for a count of 4, and holding the breath for a count of 2. Repeating that process of breathing in for 4, hold for 2, out for 4, hold for 2. Just repeat that process for about a minute or so. It can change your emotional state and your physical state pretty dramatically. Ask yourself at that point, will any of these things that I'm worried about really matter 10 years from now? Will they matter even 5 years from now? Will they matter even just a year from now? Getting around other people can help you regain perspective too. I'm an introvert, so this isn't always my instinct, and it takes some willpower to orchestrate sometimes, but being around other people can be extremely effective in helping me get out of my head and regain perspective. Whenever I'm overly focused on my own responsibilities, then being around other people reminds me that there's more to life than just what I am stressed about. And enjoying time with people that I like rejuvenates me, and it brings a new outlook on my problems. Being around others is often a reminder that whatever I'm facing feels super important because it's my problem, but everyone else's problems feel equally important to them. As Regina Brett once said, if we all threw our problems in a pile and we saw everyone else's, we'd grab ours back. The fourth strategy for pushing past overwhelm begins a transition here into more of an action mode. You might want to use one of these first 3 strategies to rebalance yourself a bit, and then consider the remaining strategies that I'll share with you. Approach number 4 is tapping into your vision, legacy, and long-term goals. This is a useful approach for major projects and creative tasks where it's easy to lose steam halfway through. That happens to me a lot. When all the easiest and fun parts are done, I hit a wall. It's that part of the process that's unpleasant or mentally taxing, just a lot of work, and it's hard to get motivated to finish. Tapping into my long-term goals helps a lot in those situations. I'm really passionate about the work that I'm doing, and I believe that it's making a difference. The stuff that gets hard at times, like finishing writing a book or even finishing a podcast episode, well, I know the final product is going to be part of my legacy. I truly want to prioritize my work. And I remind myself that the current project is only one of the things that I want to do this year. I have other ideas that sound super fun or really important right now, and I know I'm not going to have the time or the mental bandwidth to tackle them until I get the current project done. So my motivation to get it finished and move on to the next goal is also motivating. I'm looking forward to a time when this current task is in the rearview mirror and I'll have more time to focus on other things that matter to me. Think about your own goals and priorities and legacy. Think about how you want to be spending your time a few months from now or a few years from now, and how some of the tasks that you're struggling to push through now are moving you forward. Envision how good it will feel when you're finished with this project that's on your plate right now. Maybe a couple days or weeks or months from now, how good is that going to feel when you're done? And use those positive feelings to motivate you to get working. That feeling that you want to feel is on the other side of the discomfort you're feeling right now. The fifth strategy is to dump the stress by planning and batching tasks. I like to use this strategy when I feel like I have an endless, disjointed list of things to do, and a lot of those things I don't really care about. So it's sort of the opposite problem of what I just described when the work is really important and meaningful, and that's what makes it overwhelming. This time, the stakes aren't really high. Not everything on our to-do list is really important or moving us toward our goals. Sometimes the stuff that's draining our energy and motivation isn't moving us toward what we want. Nothing feels important. So this is a strategy for motivating yourself when there's nothing that you really want to do. In those situations, try dumping all the stress somewhere on a list. It doesn't have to be an organized list at first, but just getting everything out of your head and onto a piece of paper or into a digital note can be really helpful because it will keep you from trying to hold all of your responsibilities in your mind. Remember that many of life's little annoyances can be batched and completed on 1 or 2 set days each week. I think of those as a buffer day. So if your to-do list is just cluttered with little tasks like make vet appointment for the dog or clean out hall closet or file paperwork, and those little things are what's overwhelming you and keeping you from doing the bigger, more important projects, shift all those little things over to one day where you don't do any big projects or deep work, and handle the little stuff in life that just piles up on you. You can batch those tasks together and then they'll feel more meaningful. So if you have a bunch of random phone calls to make, give yourself a half hour one day this week for making them all at once. And then you're not going to have to think about phone calls again for a couple more days or maybe even longer. If there's a handful of minor household repairs that you've left go undone, write them on your to-do list for Saturday morning. And then when you're done, you'll feel the satisfaction of having all of them taken care of, instead of just trying to do a little bit every day after work. Batching can be a much more satisfying and not to mention efficient way to work because you're getting all the emails finished or handling everything related to organization rather than spending your day feeling like you did 100 things but have no memory of what any of them were because they were all so trivial. Another approach that's really powerful, and this is strategy number 6, is to eliminate tasks and go back to basics. This is my go-to strategy when I know that I have overcommitted myself and I'm never going to be able to get everything done that I'd hoped. I usually resort to this strategy when I find myself pushing back the same tasks over and over. And you know how that goes. You wake up on Monday, you look at the list and you think, nah, I don't want to do that. Wake up on Tuesday, nope, still don't want to get it done. And after a few days of just pushing tasks back, I get fed up with it and I start eliminating. It's like, okay, let's get real. This thing is just not happening. If I'm able to push it back over and over, it must not be that important or that urgent. So let me question that. Does it really have to be done? Does it have to be done by me? Does it have to be done by me right now? And does it have to be done by me right now to the complete extent that I had planned? Part of the success of the strategy involves giving yourself permission to stop trying to do so much right now. It's showing yourself grace and treating yourself with compassion. If a friend was super overwhelmed, you would never tell them, suck it up, buttercup, you got to do it all right now. You would help your friend let go of some of the things that they're putting extra pressure on themselves to do and encourage them to delay or delegate some things. Treat yourself with that same kindness. Try stripping away everything that you thought you had to get done today and just look at the first task. What would happen if an emergency cropped up and you absolutely could not do that thing that you thought had to be done today? If you could get away with not doing it in an emergency, what's to stop you from getting away with not doing it now? Do you have to put it on your to-do list for the day? Keep going through the tasks in this manner and only write down the things that absolutely have to be done by you right now. By focusing on what's really essential, it's easier to move back into productivity mode and start getting some forward momentum. Now, I realize this is easier said than done, and before I share the last 2 strategies for pushing past overwhelm, I want you to know about a place to get support with this process. If you recognize that you need to take some things off your plate, but you have no idea what you can remove, and you want a group of educators to brainstorm with, I'm doing something new around that just for the month of October 2019. I've created a free pop-up group on Facebook. It's a closed private group just for the month of October where you can have discussions and get support. If you click the show notes for this episode, or if you open Facebook and you search for Fewer Things Better Book Conversations, you can join the group. Our discussions there are going to be taken from questions that I've developed for my book, which is called Fewer Things Better: The Courage to Focus on What Matters Most. And unlike a typical book club, there's no pressure here to read chapter by chapter. And in fact, I think the discussions are going to be valuable to you, even if you don't read the book at all. To participate, you can read the book at your own pace if you'd like, and pop into the group anytime, as often or as little as you want to, throughout the month of October. And of course, if you join now, you're free to begin sharing ideas in there right away. I want this to be an easy, no-commitment way for you to have community and support in living the Fewer Things Better way this school year. It's a place to share your ideas and reflections with like-minded teachers who also want to focus on what matters most and find ways to eliminate or streamline the rest. So the sixth strategy for pushing past overwhelm is to eliminate some of the tasks that need to get done and get back to basics. Join us in that group on Facebook if you want support with it. It's called Fewer Things Better Book Conversations. The seventh strategy for pushing past overwhelm is to ease your way into productivity mode using quick wins. Even after you've gotten some rest and done some self-care and eliminated all the tasks except for the most important ones, you may still need to force yourself to get back into the productivity game and start getting into motion again. I often like to start with things that I can get done quickly. If I can knock a few things off my list in 30 minutes, then I feel like I've been more productive than if I use those 30 minutes to start a 2-hour project. One teacher I know uses this approach when she's feeling overwhelmed with the state of her classroom. She looks around the room after school and she finds things that she can fix in 20 to 30 minutes. Once she sees that progress, she makes a list of everything that she needs to do immediately and then a list of things that she would like to do. She organizes the task by priority and chips away little by little over the coming weeks, reevaluating as new and more important things come up. The timer can be a great tool for this. Sometimes I promise myself I only have to work for 15 minutes and then I can stop. When the timer's up, I've either gotten 15 minutes worth of stuff done, which feels infinitely better than 0 minutes worth of stuff, or I've gotten myself into a state of flow and wanting to continue a little bit more. The final strategy is to tackle the task that's creating the most anxiety. Although doing the easiest thing first and getting quick wins can help you ease back into productivity mode, it's not always the right path if there's something bigger that's hanging over your head. Author Brian Tracy has a book called Eat That Frog, and the title alludes to doing the least attractive task first. Sometimes you're just not going to get any relief from your anxiety until you do the thing that you're most worried about. Try breaking down the dreaded task, which is probably a big project, into easier, smaller steps. So if report cards are due, the steps you might write down are finish grading papers, add all grades to gradebook, calculate grades, add grades to report cards, compose comments, send to principal. Once you can see those steps in front of you, the task feels a little less overwhelming. You'll get the satisfaction of crossing off each step as you complete it, and you can see how each task is moving you toward your end goal. And if it's too much to do in a single day, which a big project like that probably is, you can feel good about having completed a couple steps instead of feeling like all you did was start something and not finish. You'll know exactly where to begin tomorrow with the next step, instead of feeling like you're just wrapping up loose ends from the day before. So those are 8 strategies you can use when you feel too overwhelmed to even begin anything. Try experimenting with these ideas and observe what works for you when. Over time, you'll develop your own toolbox of strategies to help you get unstuck when you feel trapped and overwhelmed and too exhausted. Your takeaway truth for the week ahead is a quote from my book, Fewer Things Better. It says, "The solution to overwhelm is not to manage your time better or work more efficiently. Or at least, that's not the place to start. The most important step is getting clarity, figuring out what matters most so you can do fewer things better." When overwhelm and exhaustion become your primary state of being, I encourage you to take that step back to get clarity and focus. Often there are simple changes to our workload and routines that we can make that will make a huge difference in our energy levels and in our feelings of satisfaction if we can just step out of autopilot for a moment and approach life with consciousness and intentionality. The Fewer Things Better book will help you ask yourself the right questions, and the Book Conversations group will help you think through the answers to choose an approach that's right for you. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.